welcome to Critical Hit, a Major Spoilers podcast. Thank you for downloading and checking us out this week. This week we're going to do something a little different. Not quite a mailbag, not quite a general discussion, but kind of a combo of each. I think it's a time, there's something we haven't done in a long time, right? We haven't just done a show where we just talk about other stuff that is in the sphere of Dungeons and Dragons or the RPG games that we're currently playing here on the podcast. So we're just going to kick back and we're going to let our hair down. We're going to talk. We're going to relax. I've got a little drink here. It is not what you think it is, but it is pretty tasty. And so let us just talk about stuff. There was an interesting article that appeared a while ago that I wanted to get your guys' reactions to. I don't know if you've had a chance to read through it, but it's called Powered by the Apocalypse versus Dungeons and Dragons, How the Mechanics Compare. And let me ask you guys this. Is it a good idea to compare systems that are radically different from one another? I know that people always are like PS4 versus the Xbox, Macs versus PCs, apples versus oranges.
Right. You'll notice they very rarely go Xbox versus the Switch, right? Because they are actually very different.
Yeah. So is that what this is when someone says, let's compare Powered by the Apocalypse with Dungeons and Dragons, and which one is the more crunchy system?
I feel like this article was mostly sort of addressing... So online, there's always a lot of talk about games, and especially about Dungeons and Dragons. And I think Powered by the Apocalypse is sort of what World of Darkness was in the 90s and early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Powered by the Apocalypse is what the cool kids are playing while everybody else is playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I don't, that's not actually a value judgment. I mean, what the kids who think they're cool are playing.
Yeah.
So
I'm playing Fate Accelerated.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically we're the band kids.
Well, what are the theater kids playing?
The theater kids are
Vampire the Masquerade.
Playing Spin
probably
the Bottle.
still playing Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right.
So I think this is it's really kind of a hey, if you want to get into the system, here's what you can expect through comparing them.
That's what I thought.
They can be like, how there are orcs in D&D, you can have orcs here too. How there's a big old combat with you hitting a guy, then somebody else hits a guy, then somebody else hits a guy. That's not so much a thing in Powered by the Apocalypse.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I took away from it too, is not so much of let's do a compare and contrast between the two systems, but more of a, hey, you guys who everyone in the world is currently hooked on their Dungeons and Dragons right now. Here are some alternatives that you may not have thought about because you're so into Dungeons and Dragons right now, which is not a dig on Dungeons and Dragons. So when I read this, I was like, well, it really does feel like instead of saying, well, which one is the better system or which one is the crunchier system, it says, hey, here's an alternative you've probably not heard of yet, or maybe you have heard of, but you really haven't given some consideration.
Yeah, I mean,
when I saw the headline, I started thinking about things that are like gaming, and the best one I could come up with was sports. And so there are people who it's like, oh, I live in Chicago, so when the Bears are playing, I watch the Bears, and when the baseball team, I probably have a preference between the baseball teams, and then maybe I even watch the soccer teams. But there are other people who are like, no, I'm really just into football.
Mm-hmm.
And people aren't like, well, why aren't you into baseball? It's just like, I don't know. I like the way football is different than baseball. And I think because gaming is still so much more obscure, and it's something that has been, video gaming has finally kind of moved away from this too, because especially for video gaming, and I think this still exists to some degree in tabletop gaming, is like, well, you're only a real gamer if you like this one type of thing. Whereas if you are playing hidden object games on your phone primarily, you're not a gamer. If you're playing a shooter on your Xbox, you're a gamer. And obviously that's nonsense. But I think that there's the same divides in kind of tabletop stuff between real gamers play D&D and hippie gamers play co-op narrative games. But what it comes up to is like just people get different things out of gaming, just like they get different things out of watching sports or watching TV or watching movies. Like no one says like, oh, I like watching movies, and everyone expects that they watched as many documentaries as they watched like action movies. And so, there are people that are like, oh no matter what, like gaming, I'm in. But like most people have very strong preferences. And so I think what at core that you're right, that this is trying to be like, if you've heard of D&D but it's not for you, but like want to try a different system, Powered by Apocalypse is technically gaming but very, very different. But I think it is kind of a weird dichotomy to be making.
Yeah, no, and that's I think one of the reasons when we've done some segments that we've done here on Critical Hit and also over on the GM Roundtable, we'll play that game with Brian where it's like we'll pick a concept, a high concept, and then he's got to find or suggest a system that he thinks would work with that genre, that concept, idea, whatever it may be, just so that people who are listening, who may be always sitting there going, well, I wonder if we could do a Mystery Inc. Game inside of Dungeons and Dragons. And of course the answer is yes, but have you heard about this system or this system or this system? Because they might already be a little bit more malleable for what you want to do.
The weird thing about this piece to me is, well, again, if I'm actually reading the piece and reading the headline, it seems like those were written by different people.
And that may be true at bigger organizations. And again, I'm not trying to poo-poo this article. I just thought it was a very interesting place to jump off on.
What it seems to be trying to do, and what it ends up doing, at least from my perspective, are different, because it seems to be doing that thing where it's trying to say, hey, maybe, expand your horizons. It's like the thing where I'm like, hey, here's a bunch of weird superheroes. And everybody's like, yeah, I sure do love Wolverine. And I'm like, great. Did you know about this guy, Timberwolf, who's a little like Wolverine, but different? But what it really comes out when I sit and read it is it feels like another does pineapple belong on pizza discussion.
I'm curious, Rob, because you go out a lot more than the rest of us. You go to, you have a gaming store and you have a regular group of friends that you play with outside of us, which, we're all sad because you have other friends. But
I have a regular gaming group.
Yeah, so do I. We're not all like.
Oh man! Next thing you're going to tell me. Next thing you know, Matthew's going to tell me he has another group of players. Oh man. Anyway,
I mean, Matthew lives with enough people to have.
I think his daughter does a bunch of GM stuff or a bunch of gaming stuff. But Rob, I was curious because you do go out to the gaming store and you are involved with a bunch of different people playing a bunch of different games and people coming in and out of the game store. Is this something that comes up a lot in your circle?
I have one friend who actually explores outside of D&D on a regular basis. And I feel like given enough years, he will basically become a second Brian for me.
Okay.
But it's not really all that common for people to be I don't see a lot of people actively searching for games outside of D&D here. I don't know if that's just I'm not hanging out with the role-playing group as much because I hang out with more of the board game Magic crowd, or if it's just D&D has enough interest that no one here is really looking for anything outside of it.
Well, and to be honest, I mean, Wizards of the Coast with 5th edition really captured a lot of gamers' attentions, and people, I mean, we did a GM roundtable not too long ago about, what else is there besides Dungeons and Dragons, but I mean, I can't fault people who may only know that there is Dungeons and Dragons out there and may not be aware that if someone says, the Star Wars game, that, there's a couple of iterations of the Star Wars game that people can go and play. There's, Call of Cthulhu and Fate Accelerated and all these other things that they may just simply not know about. I mean, I didn't know about a lot of these other games until Brian and I started talking when I was driving him home at night, where he's like, oh, yeah, have you heard about this game? And you should check this out. And he'd bring something over and say, hey, borrow this book. And then I'd be reading into it. And it's like, oh, wow, this is fascinating. This sounds interesting. So I'm hoping that the point of this article wasn't to say, well, this one is better than this one because this one does this or this one does this. and more along the lines of, did you guys know that there's something else besides Dungeons and Dragons out there?
Yeah, very, very stealthily. The point of this article, I feel, is to be like, hey, have you guys heard about Powered by the Apocalypse? Or people keep asking me about Powered by the Apocalypse. And the second question they always ask is, how does it compare to Dungeons and Dragons? The correct answer to that is it doesn't. It's a different game. But I'm going to go through and tell you how that happens so you can stop asking me.
Yeah, and I also wonder if it wasn't a good idea to target the article in this way, because there are people who are only going to pay attention if they see something that has Dungeons and Dragons in it. And if you just said
absolutely.
Powered by the Apocalypse, they would just be going, oh, that's some new comic book crossover event that's coming. I don't care about that.
Yeah, as a journalist, I would bet like that Rodrigo's right. It's like, hey, can I write an article about Powered by the Apocalypse? I'm really into it right now. Is that like D&D? No, not really. It's like, all right, well, D&D is doing really good search traffic. So can you get that in the headline somehow? And like maybe in the body a few times too, like Baldur's Gate? Can we talk about Baldur's Gate right now? So.
Speaking of other games, we were talking just before we were recording, Sam, you have a new games, or I don't know if it's a new game system, but one that you've been playing around with. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's not super new. So the base game system isn't super new, though. What is new is this new version of it called. So the base game system is Kids on Bikes, which is a fairly collaborative, but still has dice and a GM, which is basically my speed for anything that's lighter. That it still has like some form of mechanics. But kind of a role-playing game version of your classic like Stranger Things, E.T., plucky kids on bikes encounter the supernatural. And, you can do kind of what you want with it, but like the rules are that you're mostly like kids and teens and cell phones don't exist. And one of my favorite things about it is that you have like a party and like each is, like kind of like a kid archetype, and then you also have a some form of weird creature that is part of your party. So think like E.T. or 11 or but you control that creature as a group. So like different for person. So like each player can be like, oh, well, I am controlling like, them because they're interacting with the outside world, and I've come up with like how they interact with like people who are not in this group, or like I can control them in combat because I know like their special telekinetic abilities. And everyone comes up with kind of like the world and rumors and secrets about it, and answers a bunch of questions about their characters and their quirks and things like that. And then the GM decides what is true and what is happening and kind of leads people through a weird little adventure. And then Kids on Brooms is similar mechanics, and except for that you're at school of witchcraft and wizardry.
Yeah. Funny side story. My youngest, who is now 9, has just gotten into Harry Potter, started watching the movies, and he started to read the books. And I'm not gonna get into the whole thing with the author at the moment with him, although it'll probably come up at some point. But he's super into watching the movies. And then he watches another show called The Owl House. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's an animated show about a girl who gets transported into a magical realm, and she is sticking around with this outlaw witch person and trying to learn magic, and she has to learn proper pronunciations and proper, drawing the spell correctly, all this stuff. And he's watched it a couple of times, and then after he watched Harry Potter, he kind of was like, oh, Owl House just kind of borrows heavily from Harry Potter. And I was like, oh boy, wait till I tell you where Harry Potter got all its ideas from. And so anytime someone now says, oh, this is like Harry Potter kind of stuff, I kind of giggle, because it's just like, oh yeah, that's something that everyone at this point kind of understands as that keyword. Just like when people say, hey, let's play a role-playing game, everyone is just like, oh, you're talking about D&D. And it's like, no, not really, but okay.
What D&D is this? This D&D is called Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah, I mean, like there's actually, I forgot, there's still another system that's part of or setting kind of book that's part of the same system called Teens in Space, which is like your space cases, like, I don't know, young Starfleet doing weird space adventures. Yeah. And so they all use the same basic system. So we can talk about what setting interests people the most, but they're all extremely tropey and goofy and sound like pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, Milky Way Mathletes sounds like fun. Let's make that.
Milky Way Mathletes. Is that the name of the system, or is that what you just made up?
We solve crimes in space using long division.
Oh.
Well, I mean, Star Mathlete is one of the included in the book archetypes for kids on bikes. So if that's what you want to do, man.
I'm just saying. I don't do the Mad Scientist Club, but that's because I'm older than all of you people, except Steven.
Is that an RPG system?
No.
Oh, okay. You're just saying
that's a series of adventure novels that I read when I was 6.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought it was like the club at school where they let you blow up rockets, which was awesome.
I used to read Encyclopedia Brown, which a lot of people just don't know who Encyclopedia Brown is anymore.
Yeah, I know who it is, but I never read any of the books.
I mean,
they were Nancy Drew, though.
7 anymore, Stephen.
Well, that's true too. But again, as someone who has kids that are going through the school system and Scholastic inundates them, and they have access to libraries and all this stuff, I occasionally ask, "So, what kind of books are you reading? You reading Charlotte's Web? Yes. Are you reading the Trumpet of the Swan? Yes. Of course, we're reading that. And then
Rose?
What's that? I don't know. I don't know if he has read that one yet. Although I did suggest Old Yeller and My Side of the Mountain as 2 other books that he might want to read. And then I suggested, what about Encyclopedia Brown? And he's like, I have no idea who that is. And I'm just like, okay, that's fine. I mean, Rob, do you know who Encyclopedia Brown is?
I have heard the name, but I have never gone out of my way to find out what
Encyclopedia Brown is that, your typical douchey know-it-all kid who his dad is the sheriff of the town, or he's a police officer in town. And all these things happen around Encyclopedia Brown. Though the first story that I ever remember reading of Encyclopedia Brown is there's an egg spinning contest down at the local chocolate shop, right? And so that kind of tells you how old Encyclopedia Brown is. But all the kids are there and they're spinning their eggs, and the local bully comes in and he spins his egg, and it spins the fastest and the longest, and then the egg rolls off the counter, and everyone's just amazed that the bully has beat Encyclopedia or whoever else is there. And then Encyclopedia is getting ready to leave, and he notices that the store owner is walking into the back with a dustbin, a broom and a dustbin, right? And then Encyclopedia figures it out. And then you, the reader, have you figured it out yet? If so, turn to page 28 for the solution to this mystery. And then you flip it over and you find out that, the bully was using a hard-boiled egg and not a raw egg. And Encyclopedia Brown figured this out because if it had been a raw egg, the shop owner would have used a mop and a bucket to clean up the mess and not a broom and a dustpan. And so there's those kind of stories in Encyclopedia Brown. And I kind of like that format of, we set it up and have you figured it out? Turn to page 28 to read the solution.
Is Encyclopedia actually his name, or is he just called Encyclopedia name?
His name is Leroy. They call him Encyclopedia because his mind is full of facts.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
He's not douchey, by the way. Steven says he's douchey. He's incredibly pleasant and nice, and he's the smart kid.
It's been a bunch of years since I've read Encyclopedia Brown, but my recollection is because he is such a know-it-all that there's got to be a bunch of people in town, especially the adults, that are like, who's this douchey kid that just is this know-it-all?
If you actually read really closely, his friend Sally is just as smart as he is.
Yeah.
But lets him get away with being the genius because his entire personality is built around it.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
it's really funny when Sally goes through and supports him.
Was there a series of Sally books?
No. But there was actually a television series in the 80s that adapted it, and Sally was more of a focus in that than she was in the books.
Okay. Because I remember, for some reason, I remember Sally, and he also had kind of a Ron Weasley friend as well, who was the one that was always getting into trouble that he had to save. But that's all I remember is, I had the books probably when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, I think, maybe by 9. That's by the end of 3rd grade. I think I was done with Encyclopedia
in
Brown.
The 60s. So when we were kids, they'd have been about 8 years old, 9 years old.
Yeah, there was another story where he had to go ride with his dad out to investigate a guy who potentially may have committed the crime. And they pull up to the guy's house, and the car is there, and the guy is there, and the guy's little kid is playing barefoot on the roof of the hood of the car. And they're having the question, and the guy's like, no, I have been out of town all day. In fact, I just got back a few minutes ago. You're lucky you caught me. There's no way I could have committed this crime. They get back in the car, and Encyclopedia Brown is like, Dad, you need to arrest that guy. And
he's lying.
And he's lying. And his dad's like, "Are you sure? I am the sheriff of this town. You know that, right? And I have a pretty good investigative skills as well." And it's like, did you figure out how Encyclopedia Brown knows the man is lying? Turn to page 28. And you go and turn to page 28, and Encyclopedia's like, "Oh, yeah, if the guy had just gotten back from a long road trip, that engine would be incredibly hot, and thus the hood of the car would be incredibly hot. And there was a 2-year-old walking barefoot on the hood of the car, and he wasn't screaming or crying at all. Therefore, he's lying." And so his dad goes and arrests the guy, and of course, all that holds up in court, and the bad guy goes to jail.
This is like very Veronica Mars.
Yeah.
Is,
but
yeah.
like 40 years before.
Funny.
Yeah, Veronica Mars is definitely the same sort of, pattern. And I think that at least the TV version of the Hardy Boys in the 80s was the same thing. So, it's that common sort of, hey, genius kid, but dad's the chief of police.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Do you guys like mystery RPG type games?
It really depends on who's doing the mystery. As with anything, not so long ago on an episode of the Major Spoilers podcast, we had a trivia game, and it was a really tough trivia game. And I feel like, it was tough for me, but it was apparently tougher for other people. So sometimes if you have a mystery, but you're the guy sitting there going, I have totally figured this out in the first 3 minutes, and now I have to, wait patiently or spoil the game for everybody else, it can be really difficult. So, sometimes you have the guy who tries to be too obscure, not mentioning any names, called Tom, whose mysteries can't be figured out. Just can't be, and you have to wait for him to Nero Wolf it for you at the end. So, it's a thing.
What about you, Rob? Go ahead, Rodrigo.
There are systems that incorporate mysteries into the mechanics where basically, there's been a murder, and actually you, through your investigation, determine who the murderer was, not saying that you discover it, but rather through the act of role-playing, through the investigation, essentially backload who the murderer had been.
Yeah.
Funny.
Atomic
like you
Robo
kind of make it up as you go along.
Yeah, the Atomic Robo RPG kind of works like that, where you're action scientists that show up to a situation, and depending on your roles as you investigate it, you can determine that actually these plants are vampire plants from outer space, or that actually the plants are the victims here and are trying to communicate something to you.
Is that kind of like
you're an action botanist?
Is that kind of like the way we ran the Inspectors game, the Inspectors Boise game, where it's like Brian kind of had the hook, but we filled in all the clues to point to this person or this incident?
Yeah, I think the system is a little bit more geared towards those answers. I feel that Inspectors is more geared towards that like TV show experience. Part of that is solving the mystery, but it's much more interested in like confessionals and plot twists.
Yeah.
Whereas the Atomic Robo game, at least the version that I played, because I think that was kind of a beta version.
Yeah, that was based on the Fate Accelerated, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was much more interested in, or rather, the big movements forward in the story came from roles as you determine more and more things about what was going on.
I've got the final version of that sitting over there. We could play that sometime.
Yeah.
Have you played, Rodrigo? Have you played a mystery RPG recently? And by recently, I mean the last 48 months.
I don't think so. I don't really get to play very often.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll change that. We'll fix that. Okay.
Early on in my role playing career, I actually had a few game masters who basically their whole thing was mysteries, and some of them were really good at it. I remember playing in some games that did feel like an Agatha Christie thing, and they had good sort of knowledge and control of the system, so that even in a game like Mage, where you're expected to be able to like pierce the veil of reality with your third eye or whatever, even then that would just convey information that they were already willing to give you and still manage to make an interesting mystery. And I definitely had game masters who like there was just no possible way that anybody could ever solve this because they don't give you enough information, and they like actively kind of set the players against each other so they won't share information. So you get to the end and it's like, it was Jake, and everybody's like, why?
Yeah.
So you get some of each.
Yeah. Sam, have you done a mystery RPG recently?
I did this one thing which was it was super cool. Tasha actually like put this together. I guess this was last year though, because it was like pre-COVID, because there was like a bunch of people at my house. Which is very much like a parlor kind of LARP.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
So,
I've done those before.
Basically, you have one or two people who are the investigators in the and the hook is that this person has been is like the daughter of this like rich family, and they've just had to come back, or son, I guess, doesn't, depending on, it was daughter for me because I'm whatever. And they come back because the family patriarch has died, and they have to like interrogate all the different people who are playing the different characters to try to figure out, like, get to the bottom of the mystery.
Yeah.
And which was super fun. But I kind of feel like that is, you have to be like the right mindset for that because it kind of puts you on the spot to be asking all those questions. But it was pretty fun if you actually really want to be like Benoit Blanc or Sherlock Holmes or whatever.
Yeah. Is that one of those how to host a murder party things? It's
basically very similar to that. Although I feel like I don't know. I honestly have never done a how to host a murder party. So I've been to like one of those at like a dinner cabaret theater, which I thought was a blast. Where like the audience kind of then votes on who is guilty.
Oh,
but
I see.
like
Yeah.
when this one is like, it's all being like some kind of combination of improv, but like also scripted what each person has to hide. Was really fun.
Okay, cool. Rob, you and I played Call of Cthulhu not too long ago. Oh, it's actually been like 4 years ago or something like that. And we were just bad at solving the mystery. And I've been doing a lot of reading on how to do mysteries, and the thing that I've come up with, and several different game masters have pointed this out, is don't make your party search for clues, especially if they don't know that they're supposed to be searching for clues. You give them the clue and let them figure out what that means. And I don't mean like you discover a clue. It is, you pick up a book, you open it up, and you discover all this stuff that's on the inside. Or you make you make a roll, but you make it a roll that is not dependent on them discovering the clue or not discovering the clue.
I think Brad actually did that pretty well when he was doing that. I'm going to go with we role played too well.
Maybe that's it.
Because
we were just too good for Brad. That's what we'll say.
Even, like, or none of our characters were even like thought of to be looking for a mystery of sorts. It was just, hey, I need to find my uncle.
Yeah. But I know there was definitely a specific moment where we were supposed to be in the house, and there was a book we were supposed to be searching for, and that was the major clue that was going to help us unlock everything. And then we just didn't even do that. And Brad was like, you guys didn't do that. And I was like, well, and then as I've been going and doing this research, it's basically like you go through the room, you bump into a table, a book falls up and opens up to a page, and then you pick it up and you're like, oh, this is a book that describes all the things that we needed. We didn't even know we were supposed to be looking for it, but by happenstance, this happened.
I mean, being in the right mindset, like Sam said, is important. And a big part of that is the game master discussing their expectations of you.
Yeah.
If you are coming to that game only having played, Dungeons and Dragons and expecting, fights and some light skills moments, then a game in which you actually have to use your noggin to solve a problem is going to, like, you're either not going to do it, or by the time you figure out that that's what's supposed to be happening, it might be really late in the narrative or really late just in that session. Player expectations are very important. I would say they're one of the single most important things, which is why anytime I run a game, I set everyone down and I'm like, here's the sort of characters I expect you to make. Here's sort of what I expect the game is going to be like. That's, basically this is what you're going to be playing if you play in this game.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Back in Dead City Productions, the like vampire game that Rodrigo and I were met through, the first game of the year that anyone ran was the newbie game was a murder mystery, and the players had to solve it by interacting with a bunch of other people. Other people who were part of the game would play NPCs just for the night that were all part of this murder mystery, and they had to run around and talk to them. And that actually set the expectation of the game, which is this is a game where people are going to lie to you constantly, and you have to like figure out how to see through their lies, because that's not a thing that a lot of people are used to if say they came from D&D or a fully collaborative role-playing game.
Every time we sit down to record a show, everyone's asking, where's Brian? Has anyone seen Brian? Brian's here. Don't worry. He's just been very, very quiet this entire time. Haven't you, Brian?
Sure.
Or have you been cursing loudly in the background?
I mean, not untrue.
Not untrue.
Brian had to go home. His planet needed him.
Yeah, it says not very choice words for my equipment.
Yeah. So we've just been talking about a bunch of different game systems and everything. Is there a game system that you're like really into right now, Brian?
There's been a few I've been looking at. I mean, I've been looking over some Powered by the Apocalypse stuff just for something more lighter, more narrative focused. On the crunchier end, Valor, the heroic roleplay system, has been kind of of interest to me. It's a very tactical grid-based game, but it's kind of a effect-based. Basically, you build your 4th edition style powers and everything.
Do you guys, so just in general, do you guys like tactics games like video games?
Yes.
Yeah, I do. Sure.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you
Sorry,
mean
you
by
cut out there
tactics.
for a second for me. What did you ask?
Do you like playing tactics-based video games? Like,
yeah.
You got to move this grid, and then you got to fire and do all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. I just picked up I Can Fail this last weekend, which is a tactical-focused combat style RPG.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I've been playing Wasteland 3.
Yeah, I've been playing Into the Breach. So yes, this crew likes their tactical RPGs.
I'm going to look up Into the Breach really quick. What is it? I was going to ask you about this the last time we were recording, because I know you've talked about it before, because it's all about mechs, and I wanted to I wanted to get this game, but I couldn't remember what the name of it was.
Yeah, it's not a game that clearly says giant robots fighting giant bugs, and also you travel through time. But yeah, Into the Breach. It's by the same people who did FTL, which I haven't played FTL, but I guess is like a huge selling point because everybody loves FTL.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Well, there is a game on Steam, I believe. It is the Sentinels tactics game on Steam. What is it? Freedom?
Sentinels of Freedom?
Sentinels of Freedom, the tactics game. And I have been debating whether to get that, because sometimes I like tactics games, but someone had recommended a tactics game to me not too long ago. It was like, oh, I love this game. You'll love it too. And it was very expensive, and I bought it. And then about an hour into it, I'm like, oh, I hate this. And I don't know what it was about it that I hated. Maybe it was that they didn't explain everything that you could do, what your powers were, or anything like that. I thought it had a very poor tutorial system.
That can happen.
Yeah. And so I was just like, oh, really turned off on this. But then, several years ago, there was a Call of Cthulhu Tactics game that came out that I really kind of enjoyed in the way that was set up. So I don't know. Have you played Sentinels of Freedom, Brian?
A little bit. I got it on my Switch. I wasn't quite a big a fan of that one. It's okay. I'm largely just kind of playing it for the Sentinels comics lore of it.
Okay, well, it's fairly cheap. It's only $25, so maybe I'll check it out.
Kind of why I got it.
Into the Breach, though, that's roguelike, right?
It is a roguelike, yeah. Basically, the idea is that even as you start out the game, your very first pilot has already witnessed the bug apocalypse and is traveling back through time to warn everyone and to fight against the bugs with the knowledge that he already has. So when you lose, you get to pick one of your pilots, and they travel back in time to the beginning of the game. So it basically gives you that boost of having a already leveled up character come back to the beginning of the game and then start the game from there. Also, you unlock more mechs, and the only way to really play them is to start over. So
Yeah.
I suppose you could beat the game and start over, which is something that you can do.
Have you beat it yet?
I have beat it, yeah. It doesn't have like a huge ending. It just kind of has a screen that tells you what happens, which is honestly great because the fun of that game kind of weirdly is dying or beating it and then going back and trying something else.
Mm-hmm. Live, die, repeat.
Yep.
Yeah. Anytime someone says there's an in title card that tells you what happens, I always think back, Matthew, to the Stephen King movie on all the machines come to life.
Oh God.
What's that?
Yeah,
Maximum Overdrive, right? Where it's like all this stuff happens and then the title card comes up and goes, and then 3 days later a UFO was shot down over the planet, and it's like, wait, this whole thing has been aliens this entire time, and you're using an in title screen to tell us that?
I always think of the Monster a Go-Go, where you get to the end and they're like, there was never a monster. You kind of get to that point where you can't. You can't.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy.
So
nobody wants that guy.
Sam is playing. Say that system again.
Wasteland 3.
Wasteland 3. Rodrigo, you've been playing Lancers, or have you not played Lancers yet? You've just been reading all the manuals.
I've just been reading it. I really haven't had a chance to play it. I found some people that do pickup games, but most of their pickup games are while I'm working.
Oh, okay.
So I still haven't gotten a chance to play it. I'm just reading the manuals a lot and talking to people online about it. And they have a really good character builder. So just building stuff on that.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Brian? What's the game system you're playing right now, or you're into right now? Did you say?
What I've been playing recently outside of Critical Hit has only really been a little bit of D&D with the in-laws.
Oh, okay.
I've been kind of looking into some Powered by the Apocalypse options, and Valor Heroic Roleplay System is like the full title.
Yeah, and so what is that about?
Well, it's kind of an anime-themed tactical RPG. There's not really a built-in setting to it, so it's supposed to be, fairly open-ended in that regards. But yeah, it's a very kind of like a point-buy system. But the powers that you can buy are have variable cost depending on what attributes you're using to buy them. So there are kind of classes built into it in a way.
Okay. I'm just kind of scrolling down. Valoris Games.
Yeah, Valoris Games. Yeah,
is the website to go look. So I'm just kind of scrolling through this kind of quickly.
I think that's the name of Kim Cattrall's character in Star Trek VI.
Matthew, what game systems are you playing besides what we're currently playing?
Our ongoing Fate Accelerated game is on hold due to no one is allowed in my house.
Mm-hmm.
And
what's your Fate Accelerated game? What's your Fate Accelerated game?
Oh, the Boazes and their son, and then everybody in my house. We had been playing a game. Tom's been running it. It's basically a Midwestern mystery story with, so far, no really psychotic elements. Everybody's basically a normal person. Mm-hmm. So we have like a secretary and a high school teacher, and all of the people are getting involved in this weird mystery because they're all part of the same family.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Widget is in the midst of a 5e game, and I keep trying to get her. She and I have nebulous plans to try and put together a 5e game for the family. Monday night is game night, and lately we've actually been watching Netflix because we got hooked on Avatar and Legend of Korra. But at some point, we're planning to put together a 5e game to try and get everybody on the same board about, okay, seriously, this is Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to play it. Everybody's going to have played it. Then we can all say we hate it and move on. Yeah. Or whatever we need to do. Because we have one person who's never played. And, me, and I do my thing, whatever it is that I do. Widget has only played 5th edition. And then Stacy has only, or hasn't played, any Dungeons and Dragons since AD&D, but has been playing. Oh God, what is that mess? With the thing, Rodrigo references it all the time.
Lancers?
No, Cyberpunk Darkness
Shadowrun.
Shadowrun.
Yeah, she's playing a Shadowrun game.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if it's a new version or if it's, just an ancient version that's been cobbled together, but she had been playing that game for a while until, again,
Shadowrun's
no
been out
one's
for a
allowed
while.
in the house.
Shadowrun's been out for a while.
Shadowrun's been out for years. We played that in college.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a new edition every few years.
What's the new edition? What's the current edition?
6, I want to say.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they're playing a previous edition, and if I understand correctly, they didn't update to the previous edition before 6 came out. I don't know. It's a
hey, I don't really have a problem with people wanting to play an older version of the system. For us on this game, of course, we started with 4th edition, and just because I was new to RPGs and everything, I started buying the different books and manuals as they came out, and I think I have close to all of the main 4th edition books, and it was expensive. Like if you're talking like $50 a book, that's a lot of money that you drop down for. I've got a whole shelf here filled up with them, and another shelf filled up with 4th edition stuff, and of course now there's the 5th edition stuff. And so, granted, they don't all drop 50 books on you at once and expect you to buy all of them. They expect you to buy the core books and then buy what you need as you're doing it. Different modules and et cetera, but still, even at between $30 and $50 a book over the course, maybe 4 or 5 a year, that can still add up. So I can totally understand someone wanting to play an older edition because that's what they have. Right. I don't think everyone needs to automatically jump on the newest, greatest thing if they're happy with that system that they have. That being said, go ahead.
I do have a secret to helping to save money when you're playing games. I don't know if it works for everybody.
Well,
but what I did was
pay for your
get
materials.
a job in a comic store.
Oh yeah,
and have a discount.
Yeah, I don't think
that may not be an option for everybody.
I don't think that's an option for everybody. Speaking of new great things, I don't know if you guys have seen this. By the time you're listening to this, dear listener, this book is already available in physical form. By the time
you're listening to this, I'm 57.
He might be. You never know. But it is available right now in electronic form from Evil Hat. It is Fate Condensed, a compact standalone version of the Fate core system, streamlined for clarity and ease of reference. And I purchased this when they first announced it back in late September, early October, and it is super short. I want to say it is maybe 30 pages, maybe. I mean, it's more condensed than Fate Accelerated, which is already a very thin book. But Fate Condensed is something that's out there. Here's what they say is new. Inside Fate Condensed, you'll find, and again, this isn't a paid sponsorship, because if it was, it would be at the beginning of the show and not at the end of the show, unless, of course, you're a patron, in which case you wouldn't even hear commercials. A bonus, silver level membership, patreon.com/major spoilers. Inside Fate Condensed, you'll find 1-point stress boxes to help reduce player confusion. Skills no longer determine turn order. Improved advancements, eliminating significant milestones and finessing major milestones to compensate. Active opposition is no longer separate from the defend action. And 14 pages of optional rules for building your own custom variant of Fate easily. They give you rules for countdown scales, extreme consequences, methods to make your own big bads bigger and badder, and more. So that's
cool.
I think I got this. I think the suggested retail was $8. I think when I saw it on Drive-Thru RPG, I thought it was a pay what you want system. Yep. Does that sound right, Brian?
Yeah, and I actually just went to it myself. I think I already have access to it since I backed Fate of Cthulhu.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I just went and paid $0.
I mean, that's certainly something people can do, and this is an open license thing, so if people want to build upon this, they can contact contact Evil Hat and do some interesting things with it. But, if people, I don't know, I still am kind of a very big fan of Fate and what you can do with it, because it does feel so open. And it's not, as we started this conversation, it's not super crunchy.
Yeah, no, definitely. Fate is one of my favorites, partially because it's not that complicated, and because it is easy to convert to different settings, right? Because it is so simple.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I feel that when people say that you can play anything with the Dungeons and Dragons engine, my eye starts twitching because that's definitely not true. That's also not true of Fate. Fate actually puts a lot of power in the player's hands, and there are genres that don't want that, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's probably a reason why the big Fate of Cthulhu thing plays more like Terminator than it does an actual Call of Cthulhu game.
Yeah.
And it's because that's going to play better with Fate as an engine. Also, because I think Evil Hat wanted to do something different with it, and it's all in the public domain.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Yes and no. Yes. Depends on which elements of Cthulhu stuff they're trying to borrow and which are owned by whoever else. That's a complicated thing. But we'll just say sure. Let's just say it's in the public domain because that's what Lovecraft was. As racist as he was, the one thing that he was totally down with was Creative Commons.
He contained multitudes.
He definitely did a lot of it racist. Sorry.
He wanted everyone to have equal access to racism.
Yes. Oh, yes. Man. I was listening to a podcast. It is like, I forget what the name of it is, but what they do is they actually read a letter that Lovecraft wrote in every episode, and then they have a discussion on it. And sometimes it's to well-known writers, other times it's to, just fans that he's replying to. And then they kind of dissect it and go into it and say, well, this is what was going on at this time and whatnot. But the one that they just did recently, and again, this was months ago, depending on when you're listening, hello, future people. It was a lengthy letter to Robert E. Howard. And he's talking about the history of
Rhode Island. I think I've seen that letter.
He's talking about the history of Rhode Island. And man, he goes full on racist mode in that letter. And it's just like jaw dropping how awful he is in describing slavery and what happened after slavery and all this stuff. It was it's very eye opening. And he and Howard had a very lengthy mail exchange before Howard committed suicide.
There's a lot of Lovecraft in the Conan books.
And vice versa. And that's what I was talking about with the open world stuff where, Conan borrowed from, I want to say Derleth. Maybe I'm wrong. No, Chambers, Robert W. Chambers. He borrowed a lot of stuff to put into his work. And then, of course, he, created the Necronomicon. And then Howard was like, oh, can I use that? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so you get to see Necronomicon and you get to see a lot of that stuff pop up in the Conan books and everything. I used to belong to an email list when those were still a thing, where every day they would post a letter between Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard. And it was fascinating to read all that stuff, especially as Lovecraft was getting towards the end of his life. And talking about, well, I spent 10 cents today and here's what I had to eat. And basically, I don't remember what he had, if it was a form of cancer or what Lovecraft had, but essentially he died from malnutrition because he was so poor and couldn't afford to feed himself properly for that. But, also racist. Yeah. What else is going on? Nothing. I mean...
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely. Sometimes that's a good thing, right?
Well, yeah, it certainly can be. I mean, my toothache went away, so that's nice.
Well, congratulations.
I didn't have to, go see a dentist. That was.
Are you one of those people that put an aspirin on it, it'll go away?
No, but I'm one of those people that doesn't go to the dentist until there's debilitating pain, and then I get a root canal. I've had 9 root canals.
Oh my God.
It's all right,
I didn't know you could have that many.
I have
you can have
really
one per
cool
tooth.
plastic.
Ugh.
Yeah, are you going to just have them all ripped out and just replaced with?
No, my mother did that in her 20s, and it was disturbing.
I think my grandparents. I think my grandparents did it fairly early in their life because they would have been in their 40s, late 40s, early 50s when I was born, and they already had false teeth.
Well, this is the thing. My mother passed away when I was 36. And one of the things that was in her possessions were her teeth. And the teeth that she had when I was 36 were the ones that I tried to brush for her when I was 2 years old and cracked.
Oh, okay.
So I still had a broken tooth. So yeah, my mother was not a dental person. Apparently in the 60s, if you had dental problems, they would actually say, you can take out all your teeth and get dentures.
Yeah,
and she did in her early 20s.
Yep.
And I'm just like,
Yeah, both.
Wow.
That's what both of my grandparents had were dentures, and so had to cut the corn. Couldn't just bite an apple, any of that stuff. Sometimes if the Fixident wasn't fresh enough, the teeth would pop out.
Yep, it happens.
It was funny that my grandmother would always just pop her teeth out and do the gummy lips thing, where your lips sink in because you don't have any teeth. And we always thought that was a crack up.
That's funny to you? That sounds horrible.
For a little kid, you see somebody take their teeth out and do a weird face at you, and you're just like, that's funny. So
Yeah. My grandma had false teeth, and there was just kind of like two modes, right? Grandma with teeth, grandma without teeth.
Yep, grandma with wig, grandma without wig.
Yeah.
Steven's family stories always frightened me, and I thought I grew up in a really weird family.
No, my grandmother, from my perspective growing up, my grandmother, if you came to the door and she wasn't wearing her wig yet, she'd yell and say, "Just stay out there until I put my wig on." She'd have her hair up in a like a nylon or something and everything, and then she'd go and put on her wig and then come to the door, and we'd be standing outside for like 10 minutes going, "What's going on?" It's like, "Oh, your grandmother's just getting ready to see you." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, that's fine."
Your grandma's getting into her mech.
Yeah. So, Brian, let me ask you a question. This is one of those games we were talking about earlier about we pick a theme and Brian picks a game system.
Mm-hmm.
Dental school or dental repair?
Oh.
I mean, I'm trying to keep everything on topic, right? So I know this is just general discussion and chatting.
I would say definitely Fiasco has a huge potential there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
Nothing?
Is it? See, I
You finally broke Brian, dude.
But is there? I mean, is there like medical related RPGs? Like everybody plays a doctor. You're going to medical school, or you're a nurse or something, and
like Grey's Anatomy, the RPG.
Yeah, Grey's Anatomy, the RPG. If there isn't, there should be one.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, Cortex was specifically big on relationships. There's a new version of Cortex coming out soon, right?
Yes, Cortex Prime. And for interpersonal things, that's definitely an option. There is like a very Grey's Anatomy style medical drama RPG that's at least in development because it's been mentioned a couple times on another podcast I've been listening to called Stop, Hack, and Roll.
Oh, nice.
And,
I want to play that.
I mean, it sounds crazy, right? I still want to do. I would love to do that wrestling RPG thing.
We just got to wait for Matthew to actually volunteer.
Yeah, I know. I think Matthew would be I don't know if Matthew would be good to GM that. He would certainly be great at being a character in the game.
I can, it's wrestling. I can Kevin Nash it and be the booker and the world champion. I mean, it's fine. These things happen in wrestling. Vince McMahon was a 70-year-old man when he booked himself to win the heavyweight championship. I mean, you can do both.
Sometimes it really depends on the mechanics of the game. I think that it really used to be that, they would be like, hey, here's a giant robot role-playing game.
Yeah.
And then when you started flipping through it, it's like, what about these mechanics says giant robot? And actually very little of it does. So just because something touts itself as an RPG about, like, for example, an anime RPG, it's like when you look at the mechanics, you're like, what about this is like anime, which is in and of itself kind of ridiculous, considering that anime is is not even a genre. It's a like super genre containing literally every other genre in the world. Right. It's like, what about this is telling me it's an RPG or it's about anime, and sometimes very little. And I've seen multiple anime RPGs where I'm like, what's anime about this?
Yeah, have you read that wrestling one, Rodrigo?
I haven't. No.
Oh, okay. Has anybody read that one to know if it's like, what's wrestling about this?
The Worldwide Wrestling.
Yeah.
That one in particular, I've read some of. It is a Powered by the Apocalypse game.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually like two predominant wrestling RPGs, I would say. There's Worldwide Wrestling, which is that Powered by the Apocalypse one, and it has, kayfabe and behind the scenes stuff like part of the system.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Where, like you're booked to win or lose matches, and I mean, you can mess that up, and then that becomes part of the behind the scenes drama and all that.
Nice.
And
that's your dice rolls?
Yeah, you can. Basically, when it gets to the end of the match, you can roll to sell the lost or whatever, or overturn it, and then
sandbag
have a manager be mad at you or whatever.
Yeah. So the wrestling one still sounds interesting to me. What were you going to say, Matthew?
That's the problem with a wrestling RPG is as much as I would, possibly theoretically, if I weren't, entirely retired, enjoy GMing that game. The idea of playing that game with and or against Rodrigo Lopez is almost too much to bear. I mean, that's one of those things where I want to be in a game where Rodrigo is allowed to cut promos. And so I want to be able to, face him in the ring, the King Cobra to, what was his name? Silverside. I remember Silverside.
Yeah.
And then see who gets their butt kicked.
Is Silverside a luchador?
No, Silverside is a wrestler I made up, and his gimmick is that he wears silver on one side of his body.
He
wears like a silver bracer, and like his shorts have like a silver line on one side, and that's kind of it.
Yeah. I mean, there are dumber wrestling gimmicks out there. There's a guy called Balls Mahoney. That's literally his whole gimmick.
I don't want to know.
That's literally his whole thing. He comes out, he'll hit you with a chair, and his name is Mahoney.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think the wrestling one would be fun. I still think the giant Power Rangers one would be interesting. I think that's also powered by the Apocalypse, isn't it, Brian?
What is that called? Is it just called Sentai?
I don't remember. All I know is you said that there was one that everybody gets to play, Power Rangers.
Yeah, there's one that...
Pugmire also is something that is very interesting. What about Pugmire do you like, Sam? What makes you want to play that game?
I just want to play a dog.
You just want to
play a cute dog that wants to be a good boy.
What is your... describe your dog character for us.
I mean, I came up with a whole dog persona based on my dog Ladybug, who is a semi-tragic figure because... Pugmire is like your dog breeds or like your noble houses, but she is a mutt. But she believes that once upon a time there was a world in which was okay to be a mutt because humanity would love her for who she was, and that is why she is a shepherd, i.e. the priest class of the Church of Man, who wants to advocate for the world in which all dogs can be good boys and girls.
All dogs can go to heaven.
Yes, basically.
Nice.
I think it's called Henshin, Brian. Henshin,
yes.
Henshin.
And it's kind of a Powered by the Apocalypse. It actually is a diceless thing where you have to gain and spend tokens for various effects.
Oh, okay.
But it's based on the storytelling aspects of it, right? It's like narrative driven.
And then what's the 70s? Is that Monster of the Week?
Well, there is Monster of the Week, which is a Powered by the Apocalypse system very much for like supernatural Buffy style shows.
Yeah, what's the one that we were really talking about a couple of years ago where it was like basically the 70s and it was like you're taking on mutant gorillas versus women in prison kind of thing.
That one is Spirit of 77.
Yes, that's it. And that's Powered by the Apocalypse, right?
Yeah, it is Powered by the Apocalypse. I was really considering it, but there was some terminology in there I just didn't really care for. Like every character has a thing, and one of those things that you can get is owning a business. Spelled that way.
Yeah. I can see how that's a problem. Rob, what about you? Is there a game that you've been really wanting to try out or check out?
I've been wanting to get back into Pathfinder 2. I had a campaign going, and then, the apocalypse happened, and then we started to try and get back together, and then further apocalypse stuff happened.
What about Pathfinder 2 is most interesting to you? Is it because you got hooked because of Sam's great game that we had with the first Pathfinder system?
Oh,
I'm sorry,
Sam's
Sam.
great
That was a
was great.
fun system. I really enjoyed that game.
thank you.
No, I was sold based on the character creation of Pathfinder 2,
Okay.
actually. They have a very streamlined and great way of setting up what your actual stats are. And the rest of the game is just built on action economy
Mm-hmm.
that makes a lot of sense. Like every single thing you have requires X number of actions, and you get 3 actions a turn.
Yeah, it's very like almost if you played any Descent, it kind of is reminiscent of that. And that like you can, if you want, you can attack 3 times in your turn. That you're going to take iterative penalties for attacking, so it becomes less good.
Oh, I
so
see.
you ideally want to like move and attack and like do something else, like take some kind of action to like interact with an object or
So is there anytime you duplicate an action on your turn, does that result in a penalty? So if you've got to move
Just
a 6 and then
attacking.
you do a move again and you get a -2. Oh, so just
Yeah.
attacking. Okay.
Just
So
attacking,
if
and
you
you
wanna, like,
can
run across
make a
the room
build,
and just,
with
like, move,
like have a
that's
nimble
no
weapon,
problem.
or I forget what it was, the keyword's called, or have particular feats that reduce that penalty to actually make that
Mhm.
more feasible.
Yeah, so you could just run up to somebody, punch them in the face, and then run away.
Yeah,
Oh well, you'd still provoke attack of opportunity.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Yeah. Rodrigo, you're all about Lancers right now.
Lancer, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, not Lancers. Sorry, that's the high school team.
Well, yeah, Lancers is what you play. You play a Lancer.
Oh, right. Okay.
Um,
Now,
yeah,
is that
Lancer-
super team based, or is it? I mean, does it really promote? Okay, guys, we're going to go in, and you're going to swing around on this side and come in from the west, and you're going to swing around on the east side, and you're going to come in, or is it just like how we kind of play our battles in your game?
I guess it depends on what you as a player or game master are going for. There's certainly there's a huge tactical aspect to Lancer,
Mm-hmm.
and basically Lancer is mission based. So before a mission, you have a sit rep kind of situation where you figure out pretty much exactly what you're going to be doing, and then you go and you do it. And most of the missions aren't necessarily shoot until the other side stops moving. It's like hold a place or basically storm a place or accomplish a mission before a certain number of rounds go by and enemy reinforcements show up.
Mm-hmm.
Go
ahead.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the most missions aren't. You very rarely like stumble upon a pack of mecha wolves out in the wilderness, right?
Yeah,
You're just going in to accomplish a mission. There can be unforeseen circumstances during the mission, but usually you're in a base starting out the mission.
Do you get ideas from playing Into the Breach for like, oh, here's a way that I could run something similar using Lancer?
Yeah, definitely. Lancer has a very specific setting. So there's definitely a Venn diagram of like other mech media that fits well into Lancer and some stuff that does not fit well into Lancer. Most of the things that mechs can do in Into the Breach can be replicated in Lancer. So if you really want, to be that hook mech that just like grabs enemies and drops them into a vat of acid, you can do that in Lancer.
Okay. Rob, did you guys actually start a campaign on your Pathfinder 2, or was it you just doing the initial setup phase?
No, we started. We're level 2. We're a chunk of the ways into it, but
what's your story?
I am straight up ripping random stuff from Legend of Zelda right now.
Oh, nice.
It's one way to do it.
I had characters pitched and found a decent way to meld the group and was like, all right, well, let's go find random objects and temples that are used to take out bad guys.
Nice.
Did their weapons break like after a few hits?
Nah, I didn't go full Breath of the Wild.
Do you have an ocarina that you have to take with you?
No, not yet. One of the characters is a bard.
Nice. Do you have a little pixie that flies around with you?
Not yet.
Hey,
over here,
hey.
over here.
Hey, over here, hey.
But they do have a goblin/elf companion.
Mm-hmm. How is the? So are you GMing? You're GMing this game,
Yeah,
and how many players do you have?
5. 2 of them were Brent and Nick. This is their very first RPG they've ever played.
Nice.
The other 3 are veterans in at least some way, shape, or form,
Mm-hmm.
though none of them had ever played Pathfinder before.
Are they liking it? Or for what little you got to play?
I believe so.
Okay. Nobody was like, well, this isn't like World of Warcraft at all.
No one compared it to World of Warcraft. I do not have a Steven in my group.
You can't? Oh, man. Matthew, you were talking about getting back into your Boaz game. But is there another system that you were kind of looking forward to play?
I'm not really a system guy. I mean, for me, honestly, I am not conversant enough in any of the systems that I could get by without a Rob or a Rodrigo to really, really prop me up if I have to be, game focused.
Game focused.
Yeah, for me, it's all about the role play. And, half the time it's about, hey, you know how this character is going to talk? And at that point, I'm like, yeah, I can totally do that. And also, it's Pathfinder. I'm like, okay, I'll figure that out as we go. But it's very important that I know how the character is going to talk. So yeah, I'm the drama kid nerd person. But then I've always been that way too. I mean, when we played AD&D,
I don't think so.
When we played AD&D,
I've heard about you in high school.
Don't even. Okay, we met
those
when
ages
we were
ago?
18 years old.
You've told some stories
you did
about.
not know me in high school.
You've shared
Manny.
stories about when you were in high school.
Nope. Those were lies.
Oh, okay, all right.
Those were all lies.
Let's see. I think we did everybody, right?
Throw you off the scent.
I think we did everybody on what games they were interested in, right? Is there another system?
Well,
go ahead, Brian.
I could say, yeah. I mean, yesterday the Kickstarter for Evil Hat's new game started. Thirsty Sword Lesbians.
Thirsty Sword Lesbians. So by the time that people hear this, the campaign's already over.
Yeah, probably. But I mean, it might be something of interest to them, so they might look into it. It's yet another Powered by the Apocalypse thing, and as you might guess, it's very focused on like kind of relationships.
Oh, okay.
And
it was already funded in 3 hours. Wow.
Are they vampires?
No,
I'm sure they can be.
They can be, yeah. I mean, it actually provides apparently quite a few different settings or whatnot you can play it in. Apparently, one of my like is called Gal Paladins.
Somebody slide into Matthew's DMs and explain thirsty to him.
Well, if they're sliding into his DMs, I'm sure he'll get an explanation.
I understand contextually. I was literally trying to figure out if that's what it meant.
Oh, okay.
Apparently.
All right.
So,
no.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize that people older than me could mock me for my age.
I mean, yes.
I kind of, because somebody mentioned it to me, started looking at Masks. Was it like Masks: A New Generation?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. It's powered by the Apocalypse. I think you guys would really like it because the archetypes are actually very DC. I feel more than Marvel. It like gives a strong Legion vibe. It gives a very strong Teen Titans vibe.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
And, so am I. There's quite a bit of Young Justice influence in there too.
Let's play it.
Yeah, definitely.
I've been listening to Protean City. Ran by, they've kind of been rotating GMs on the more recent episodes I've heard, but Brandon Leon Gambetta is the one that initially put the game together and ran it.
Wow.
Yeah, no,
we should play that because I want to be captain something.
The Pasiones?
Yeah, Pasión de las Pasiones.
Yeah, there you go.
We were playing, we had just finished up the Sentinels of the Multiverse game, and of course that was a game that we recorded over like 3 or 4 months. Yeah. And we were playing the starter kit, which had all the pre-gen characters. And, we were talking about how sometimes it's difficult to play that pre-gen character when there's already a kind of a huge mythology or, stuff built up behind it. But the more I was editing that game, I said I wasn't going to buy into that Kickstarter when it launched, Brian, but I kind of want to buy the book just so I can see what character creation is like and setting up an original game with that. But maybe this Masks game is one to check out.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
It just kind of depends on what you want to go for. Yeah, if you want more just basically focused on superhero fights, I'd probably go with the Sentinel Comics.
Mm-hmm.
If you're wanting the whole teenage angst and inner relationship stuff mixed in with superhero hijinks and like a whole like meta system about your character kind of figuring out what kind of person they want to be as they grow up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Then
like
Masks.
as an
Marv
example,
Wolfman experience.
What if I want to just talk
Like-
about pancakes and Robin's tiny hands?
that Masks would probably be better for that.
Yeah.
Mr. Meatball Disaster.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
it's waffles.
Well, yeah, that's
Waffles.
too.
Masks.
Waffles. Yes.
Masks, literally, the playbooks do not like they have powers listed. Like whatever your powers are, you can have whatever powers you want. That's not what's important.
Yeah.
Like your moves are about like you basically balancing your angst against your ability to do stuff.
I want to have complete control
Oh,
of
so
all
the-
event.
So the first iteration of Teen Titans
Yeah.
animated series, especially
Uh,
when
A bit, yeah.
I mean,
what's
they
his
actually
name?
had powers in that. They just also
Well,
were very
yeah, but,
concerned about like
when
who
Robin's alter
was-
ego Red X or whatever his name was,
Yeah,
showed
Red
up.
X.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's Wolfman Perez Titans from
Yeah, yeah.
1980.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm
It
gonna.
very much is.
This is available on Drive-Thru RPG for $14.
Yeah.
I'll grab it.
Although
I
there are
actually,
several
kind of
other
prefer that
supplements
sort
that
of thing.
also have other playbooks as well, which may
Yeah.
be worth looking at further.
What's that, Brian? I didn't hear you.
Sorry. There are also several supplements for this as well, and they also all have other playbooks for even other character options.
Oh, okay.
I do have them all, and yeah, it's what I've been looking into for a long time, but never pulled the trigger on. Kind
I
of
think
thought
if
about
we
doing
play
it
this,
here, but since I
everybody
had
has
already
to be
done,
ridiculously
Modern
powerful.
City, I didn't want to be, just the guy doing superhero stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah. You guys like
that's why
Modern
she-
City, right? I mean, not Sam. Sam didn't play Modern City.
no.
No, she hated it.
I didn't hate it. I never played it.
She hated it because she wasn't
there.
against it.
That's fair. I hated it because I wasn't there.
I still think, and this is something that we can think about, but our listeners get a little behind the scenes stuff. For those of you who are gold level patrons, you already got to listen to a 6-issue miniseries, The Dead and the Old, featuring the continuing adventures of
Rumblebee and
Rumble-
Jetstar.
Yeah, Rumblebee and Jetstar. And I was always thinking that we need to do that again and get like Rodrigo and Sam to play two characters. Now, whether that's Professor Disaster King or somebody else, and then Sam gets to pick another, character in that universe and they have an adventure, or if it's Robin and Sam or Robin Rodrigo. But I think we need to do that at some point.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in.
Rob wants to play free
Always
agent
excited
again.
to play a superhero.
You want to play Free Agent again?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll figure it out. We'll figure out some time where we can do that.
I have a really good character concept that I don't think anybody can use, and I don't think it's really, tenable. But I really want to do a superhero called the Shaboskoy. And I want to have this character actually that be the basis of his powers, which I think would be wonderful. But I don't think you can do it. I think it would be offensive and or problematic. But
Probably. Especially if he can only work one night of the week or one day of the week.
it's the opposite.
Oh, okay.
The Shaboskoy is the person who does the work
He doesn't roll on
On
shots.
on the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be in poor taste, Matthew. Just
I'm not
me.
saying it's in poor taste. I'm just saying, I have superhero concepts, and many of them are in poor taste. Cloaca Kid is also a problem. You can't do that.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Anyway, anything else you guys want to talk about? I think we've bored our listeners enough with our inane chit chat, or maybe not. Maybe they want to hear us more of these.
All right,
They lied.
Sam,
Just-
right off the
just-
top of your head, what's your superhero name? Go.
Oh God.
And what's your
It's not
superpower?
oh God. That's too hard. I have to come up with the concept first and then the name. The name
Okay,
is the
well,
hardest part.
what are the powers?
Well, so now I'm like thinking of I'd had a character concept for like a while that I've always wanted to play in a game, which is basically like a bug controlling girl. But then I
Shaboskoy?
read Worm, and then it's like, well, that's their whole thing, and now everyone would be like, but you're like just Taylor from Worm, and it's like, no, I just really like bugs.
Yeah, Rumblebee
I mean-
controls bees. in the
Bumblebee
game.
already controls bees. You see,
Yeah,
this is
but
what I
he
get for
actually
not ever
control
listening
bees?
to your other shows.
Well, he doesn't really
So-
control
I
bees,
thought he
but
had robot bees.
he's bug themed.
Oh,
There-
okay.
Yeah, but he has a lot of had a lot of proteges, right?
But no, I mean, I have a million concepts. Like, I'm always pretty partial to shapeshifters of any variety. I would be totally down for like a extremely beleaguered like Green Lantern sort that's like extremely powerful but has a million obligations and has to answer to like a horrible bureaucracy.
Brian, could you do a game where it's Professor Disaster King before he turned to the good side, and also his fellow hench person?
I mean, I would also anytime play
you love
villain, henchman, whatever.
Sam, I didn't realize
many
this.
concepts for bad guys.
I didn't realize how much research Sam has done on villains and bad guys. But if you guys want to go and read her articles that she's written about supervillains, really good stuff.
Thank you.
And I think Sam probably knows a lot about what makes the villain tick. So maybe there's a villain adventure for those two to go on.
Though.
I mean,
When
that
she
could be an
eventually
option.
takes over a country, it's going to be up to Rodrigo to gather a group of people to stop her, because they're old friends from school, like Dr. Doom and Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah. Was it Tasha? I don't know. Someone was supposed to run a game a while back where I was going to get to play like a supervillain, and like everyone was going to be supervillains, and we all like had like tentative alliances / rivalries. And I just thought that was super sweet, and I had a whole concept for it. But like so many games, it never actually manifested. So if anyone wants to, I've got a concept for that.
There you go. All right. Well, if you guys enjoyed this chitter chatter and you want to hear more of it, just let me know. Podcastmajorspoilers.com. If you are interested in the GM Roundtable, I've dropped a couple of episodes into the Critical Hit timeline. The GM Roundtable is our Patreon-only show where we sit around and we talk about a topic in depth. Like maybe it is villains, or maybe it is other games besides D&D, or maybe it's how do you craft a really good encounter in one evening. There's a bunch of different things that we talk about that you might be interested in going to check out. And every month you get to help us pick the topic, and then we have our essentially panel to discuss that in depth. So you can go check that out over at patreon.com/majorspoilers. And of course, every little bit that you're able to contribute, we certainly appreciate it. But it also goes right back into making shows like Critical Hit, the Major Spoilers Podcast, majorspoilers.com, everything that we do at Major Spoilers Entertainment work and continue to work far into the future. So until next time, Sam, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter, Samantha Nelson 1.
Matthew, where can people find you?
They can't. No one is allowed in my home. But if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Mighty King Cobra, at Mighty King Cobra.
Rodrigo, where can people find you?
You can find me at Fearsome Critter on Twitter.
Brian?
At DND Brian.
Yep. And Rob, we'll wrap up the show with you.
At Boar Immortal.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for checking us out. We'll see you again next time. And until then, let's hope that all your dice rolls are whatever the maximum value that you can get in your game system.
This podcast is copyright 2020 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.